Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
Evening po.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, very glad to have you.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Evening. We have a lot of attendees today. Are these all your fans, Marianella?
No, I do recognize some names from 7-7. Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. No,
Hello. Yes, we are Mary's fans.
I
Yeah,
recognize
I'm so
Tom
glad you guys could
Francis,
attend.
Yep.
And I
Mark,
see Means
Alvin.
here.
Yep.
It
Means is
means
here also. Hi. Meg is here also. Diane, Melvin, um, Ace is here. Dexter. Yep.
hello everyone. Does everyone really disappear when I start sharing my screen? Is that a thing? Okay. Hey, sorry about that. Okay. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm just figuring something out. Okay, welcome to the program. Very briefly, we will begin. We'll start with an icebreaker. So please get ready to talk. I would like to see your lovely faces and hear your lovely voices. But for those of you who are shy, you can participate in our icebreaker through our chat box. I just have to figure out how to share my screen and still see everyone at the same time. Because it's not working. Okay, let's try this out. Screen 2. Okay. Hello. Can someone try speaking?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, it's working. But is that feedback I'm getting?
Yeah, there was some feedback just now.
Yeah, there's some sort of a delay.
Oh, but is it gone? Seems like it's gone.
It's gone.
I
All
think it's gone
right.
now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, things are working. Okay. Okay. So thank you for joining. And don't worry to your colleagues who are gonna be slightly late. What we have for our agenda today, well, how we normally do this is we have the first 30 minutes of the program for this icebreaker socials. It will be great to get to know you guys more. And then at about 8 p.m. we start with Miss Marianella's program. Is it okay if I call you Mary?
Yeah,
Is that
please call me Mary. I feel
okay?
like my mother is calling me when you say Marinela.
Okay. All right. All right. Cool. Okay. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Um, So for the icebreaker social slash socials, I'm wondering, are any of you out there currently pursuing any IIBA certifications?
Perhaps we can see a show of hands as to those who are pursuing any certification.
Yeah. Or it doesn't have to be IIBA, actually, but I want to hear more about it if it's IIBA because I can help you with that. But if not, then you can talk about that too. That's an interesting talking point. Donna Acosta. Okay, I'm gonna call on you now. Donna?
Sorry. Am I the only? I actually
No, there were two of you.
I
There you go.
actually passed CCBA last year, and I'm reviewing for CPOA this year, or hopefully by Q1 next year.
Oh, you got the CPB ECBA.
Yep.
You got it last year.
Yep.
Oh, congrats. Congrats, Donna. Are you a colleague of Mary?
No, I'm working for an Australian company now. So
Oh yeah, what company is that?
Domacom, Australia.
Lomcom. Okay. Very glad to have you over here, Donna. And
But
good
I'm
luck.
a Filipino. I'm residing here in the Philippines.
Right. Glad to have you on the event. Is this your first time in an IIBA Philippines event?
No, I think this is the third. Last month hindi lang ako naka-attend.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, good to have you and good luck on your next certification. All right. Looking forward to seeing more of you, Donna. I thought I saw another raised hand.
Thank you.
For those of you guys who don't know, the ECBA is the entry level certification for business analysis. ECBA. Yeah, I got that right. Okay. And the other one that you mentioned, Donna, you want to tell us more about that?
It's how do I say it? It's a special certification for those BAs who'd like to become a product owner or proxy product owner, or
Yeah.
to be a BA in the Agile environment.
Yeah, that's great. So IIBA does have its core certifications like ECBA and CBAP, and it also has specialized certifications like in product ownership, data analytics, and even cybersecurity and agile topics. I don't memorize all of them, but it's core and specialized. So if you want to learn more about that, feel free to reach out to me or check out our page, iiba.org. Yeah, shameless plug. I saw another hand raised. Someone else pursuing a certification?
Manu, I'm actually interested with the, how did you say it? The entry certificate in business analysis, or the ECBA, right? Well, I do have a lot of colleagues here in the participants, and we are actually promoting right now CBAP certification for our experienced business analysts. So perhaps in a nutshell, you can share here with the team what is the minimum requirement for them to actually, get into the ECBA or the entry certificate in business analysis. Something to look forward to for our new BAs.
Okay. So for the requirements for ECBA, I don't memorize them off the top of my head, but just to give you an idea, you need to have under your belt a number of professional development hours, meaning a number of these events. And so this event actually will be counted your professional development hours. After this event, you're gonna receive an email as proof that you attended, and you can use that. You can use that in the portal iiba.org. For those of you who haven't signed up, I highly encourage you to sign up. And there is a promo until the end of the year. Okay, so there is a promo until the end of the year, 20% off on exams. And for ECBA, CBAP, other certifications, that accumulates and that gets pretty big. How many are you in your team? How many do you have in your team?
For business analysts, well, overall for the project managers and business analysts, I have a total about 220 in my team right now.
Wow.
Half of that would be on the BA side of things. So there's a lot. So as we gear forwards to Center of Excellence, this is actually one of the items that we would like to push with the team, wherein we would like to encourage everyone to be certified. So definitely, if there's this kind of opportunity, I would like to encourage the team within 7-7. Of course, there are certain what do you call this? A criteria that they would have to fulfill, of course. But the team would be willing to support them if ever they would be qualified to participate in this certification.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love to hear that. Yeah, I love to hear about these companies that really support their teams this way and really create a culture of learning. I love hearing about that. Let me circle back to your question. What does it take? It depends on the certification that you're going after, but generally it's a number of professional development hours and the different knowledge areas. If you're familiar with
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that, Babok and the different resources that we have. So depending on what you're pursuing, you'll need different number of hours in different areas. And then of course, you'll eventually have to take an exam.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, so in the
Thanks for
Philippines,
sharing.
yeah. So so what we're trying to do here at IIBA Philippines is we're trying to so we are aware that there are a lot of there's a lot of need for this profession now. There's a lot of need for business analysis. There's a lot of need to bring together the skills in this area. So what we're trying to do, and we just got approved for operation this year. We got our approval to use this logo that you see there. Among other things, they support us like the Zoom
Nice.
account and among other things. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build that community and we're trying to really work together. Well, the community is out there, right? But we want to be able to connect with that community and really be able to form a partnership. So we're doing this on the individual level. Like there's a lot of you here. A lot of people reach out to us, join us as individuals. They have individual memberships. But when someone like you, Mary, and your team come here as a group, it actually works better for you. So there are ways that we can, 200 people, there's definitely a way that we can sweeten that deal for you versus coming to us as individuals.
All right. I will note of that.
Yeah. So
Right.
so Nins here has been working with our team, and we will get something to you regarding that. All you need is actually 10 people who want to who know that they want to become a certified in anything, and it already makes much more sense than just doing it individually. So
Alright.
that's another thing that we're doing. So Donna, those who aren't part of Mary's group, maybe you want to join her group. That joke lang.
We are accepting CVs.
But yeah, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to support you as individuals, we're also trying to support you as companies. So anyone who wants to work with us, we have in the pipeline a bunch of different deals like this. It's sort of like IIBA Philippines working together with a company, partnering with them to really upskill their workforce in these different areas. And we tailor fit it to each company, right? So so there. We do have a standard offering, and we can discuss that at some time. But yeah, anyway, I won't hijack this and turn it into a meeting, but it's out there. We'll circle back to that. In the meantime, is there anyone else out there who would like to share regarding their certification or growth, professional development aspirations? That's basically what we're about, right? We're about helping you guys as professionals, and ultimately helping this whole community out in fulfilling this need for skills and fulfilling this need to work better together as a whole unit. Anyway, so just to say, at any feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on the team. We do have a LinkedIn page that I will plug in. Do have a LinkedIn page that I will plug in. Okay. Anyway, it says here. This is the page, IIBA Philippines chapter. Feel free to reach out to us as an individual, as a company. We're here to be connected with you, and we're here to listen to your needs. So there, and that's the end of that. Next, I want to share. Yeah, so if you message that page, it's probably gonna be me or Nins or our marketing person, most likely. So next, here are some upcoming events that I wanna share with you guys. IIBA Global. So we refer to them as IIBA Global, but they're just the only for-profit component of this whole network. But what's cool about that is they organize pretty big events. And here are some of the upcoming events that we have on our radar. BA Istanbul looks good. So let's look at that for a sec. Another great thing about being part of this whole IIBA community is it's basically a melting pot of 140 different countries. And depending on how immersed you can get, you can really see the different cultures, different ways of working, and you get to see it in all these different events. So I highly encourage you to go check them out. This is the BA Istanbul conference. And here are the speakers. And here's what it will bring you. In 2023, strategic design, leading change, product ownership, and others. And we have some pretty good looking keynote speakers as well. So I will share this deck with you so that you guys can access this. This wasn't sold out the last time. Okay, you still have some registration that you can go for. Okay, so so there it is. And then another other event that we want to also promote is an event from the Bluegrass chapter. They're not IIBA Global, so sorry about the confusion. But the Bluegrass chapter, known to not a lot of you, they actually made the Philippines chapter possible. So they sat with us for months on end, holding our hand as we did our business plan and everything, all the requirements. And so we owe them big time. And so every now and then we promote their events. But you guys should check this out. It's a winter networking social. So it's an online event with the IIBA Bluegrass chapter. So go ahead and check that out. And if you want to check out other upcoming events, I'm also plugging in this link here. And just to give you an idea, so you have 140 different chapters around the world posting events here all the time. So whatever your time zone, actually, you're bound to find something here. Okay. And that's it on upcoming events. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But if you do, feel free to reach out or type in the chat box. Okay, some announcements regarding our chapter. I mentioned that we got approved by IIBA Global this year, but another recent announcement, just last week, we got approved by SEC here in the Philippines for our registration. So that's a big one. It's big because we can finally get our finances in order. We can finally actually scale our operations, and we're very, very excited. You won't see any of these boring PowerPoints anymore. They'll be better. Because we'll have money. And next, we also have we're also planning rather a January 2023 New Year party. So what's gonna happen here is, well, we're gonna have an event just like this. It's gonna be a hybrid event, so you can attend online or you can be there. Venue TBD, because we're still planning. But we're planning in Metro Manila, and it's gonna have an event like this. It's gonna have a speaker, and it's going to have a topic. And we're also going to discuss our plan for 2023. So we have a whole plan lined up for 2023. We have a 2022 review and the whole plan lined up for 2023. And we want the community to be involved as much as possible. We want to hear from you guys. How can we help in your companies and your industry? How can we play a better role in this country? Ultimately, the bigger picture is bringing that also to the world stage, because we are an international community. We are a network of 140 countries and growing. So we also want to leverage those resources, leverage those contacts, and really make the most out of it. Bring it here, and then what we have here, we bring it there. Okay, so exciting things coming up. Anyway, I won't take up too much more of your time. I know this is what you're really excited for. Okay.
Welcome, participants. Before we get started, let us get to know our guest speaker. Her professional background covers more than 18 years of solid experience in the banking and financial institutions. She currently holds the position of Director for Project Management and Business Analysis in 77 Global Services Incorporated, or 77 GSI, where she is the SME and is responsible for the development and advancement of 77 GSI's key MBA competencies through learning and development initiatives, and serves as the central hub for project management and business analysis, best practices, standards, guidance, and tools. Prior to this role, she was assigned as a 77 GSI consultant for project management to the biggest local bank, where she was able to accomplish high-level service deliverables, handle key strategic projects, and was able to put into operation complex projects. Majority of her career was spent working with multinational banks, primarily with Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, HSBC, for 10 years, and Deutsche Bank Knowledge Services for 4 years. Throughout her stint with these banks, she has handled various roles and positions in banking operations, IT, marketing, contact center, analytics, and strategy and finance. Her last role, prior to joining 77 GSI, was as a Vice President, Head of Risk and Administration in HSBC. She earned her bachelor's degree in computer science in University of Guyana, South America, and business administration major in computer application from De La Salle University, College of St. Benil, Manila. Once again, let us welcome our guest speaker, Ms. Marinela Tan.
Woo! What an intro.
Thank you. Thanks to our learning and development team for putting that introduction together. And thank you, Manu, for the warm welcome. All right. So I hope everybody is wide and awake despite the time, right? And first off, I want to thank everyone for joining in today's session, and a big thanks also to the IIBA team for the invite to be one of your speakers in one of your sessions. I've actually attended the first session with your group, and it was very informative. So I hope, today's topic will be just as informative. All right. Hold on. Let me share my screen. Okay. Manu, are we good? Are you guys seeing my presentation?
Yes, I see your title slide. Great.
All right, great. All right, so let's kick off. All right, so today's topic is, I was asked to have a talk first on change management. Actually, it was funny because Nino and I were just having a normal conversation, and then he mentioned, you know, we're looking for someone to talk about change management. And I previously had a webinar with another client of ours specifically on this same topic, and I was just quiet. And Nino was quiet as well. And then later on, we, I don't know how it led to it, but then eventually it was me saying, yes, I'm more than happy to provide this talk to your team. So here we are right now. All right. So I hope I won't disappoint. All right. So I've actually had my fair share of involvement and experiences with org changes. I've lost count of the number of org changes that I myself have journeyed through. And I myself was actually almost part of the changes. I almost got retrenched twice during the course of my career in the early 2000s. So I have a personal experience with regards to organizational changes, and these are just some of my insights on how to better manage them. All right. So today I would like to talk about what is organizational change, and then I would like to share with you 6 types of organizational changes. So, for a better understanding of what they are. And I've trimmed it down to 5 ways to ensure successful organizational change for your consumption. All right. Okay. So first, let us define what is organizational change. I think right now, with how fast industries are moving, the technologies, the advancement of technologies that we have, organizational change is now a normal part of doing business, right? Won't you agree? Right? And I'm sure each of you, at some point or another, you also have been part of an organizational change, right? Um, and then with this, change is really quite complex, right? Change management is quite complex, and change is rarely easy, right? But the bigger and more complex a business is, the more challenging it becomes to implement change effectively, right? As in anything, I do believe that before we can tackle the problem, we have to understand what it is. So, what is organizational change? First, I would like to define first what change is about, and change being the only constant thing in this world. Webster Dictionary defines it as to alter, to make different, to cause to pass from one state to another. All right, so that's the basic definition of what change is all about. Um, they say that, once you have completed your change, ano ba yung something about Benjamin Franklin, what he said, that once you have completed your change, then you're done. So change is really constant and is ever always part of our day-to-day lives, right? And organizational change, as mentioned here, are those that have a significant impact on the organization as a whole. These are mostly like major shifts to personnel, company goals, service offerings, operations. These are all considered different forms of organizational change. All right. Recognizing the need for change and knowing how to make that change successful are two different skills. Change management strategy is key, but where do you begin? All right. It all starts with an understanding of what type of organizational change you're making. All right. But first, let's dig deeper to really understand what organizational change is all about. What causes organizational change, right? So here, these are just some of the many factors or common drivers faced by managers as to when going through organizational changes. One is, of course, new leadership at the helm of the company or within its departments. Similarly, like for example, just recently in our government, we had a change in the chief executive. And with that, of course, will be a waterfall of changes that will trickle down in the different departments that we have in our government. So same with the organization. With new leadership, may likely that will trigger a change in the organization. Priorities, strategies may change, so a um, that will trigger the change management board to change the policies, etc. With that also, it may lead to a restructuring in the organization. All right, so shifts in the organizational team structure. All right. With technology as well, we have to keep up with the new changes, with the new developments that we have, to keep up the pace with our competitors, with our clients, etc. So implementation of new technology is also part of organizational changes, right? Adoption of new business models is also part of organizational changes. So for example, um, like your business for now may be offering, say, product A, and then later on, with your marketing team and your business development team, you saw an opportunity to include product B in your roster of services that you offer or products. So that in by itself, you may have to also revise your business model to adapt to that. All right, so these are just some of the causes of organizational change. Now, we go now to the next item, that of course, with the organizational change, it is important to have organizational change management. All right. So as I've mentioned earlier, org change is a business necessity. All right. Employees leave, new employees are hired, new teams and departments are created or dissolved. There are new technologies that we adopt, and there are also old technologies that we would have to phase out. All right. So the key to successful, productive organizational change is the way one manages it. All right. It is vital to keep everyone, the employees, in the loop to ensure that they understand what the changes are and how they will be affected, I mean. All right. So as mentioned here, effective change management drives the successful adoption and usage of change within the business. It allows employees to understand and commit to the shift and work effectively during it. All right. If we don't have an effective organizational change management, what do you think will be the impact of that to the organization? It would be catastrophic, to say the least. All right. These are just some of the adverse effects if not done properly. Company transitions can be rocky and expensive. Why? Because if you don't have a proper change management plan, you might be wasting time and resources, money that is actually very limited to one's company. So you have to plan it accordingly, well planned, dapat. It can also result to lower employee morale and skill development, right? If you, for example, you have a policy change with your staff and you don't have a proper rollout plan for it, so basically, what you're going to do there is basically shove the policy down the throats of your resources. And that, more often than not, will not turn out on a positive note, I assure you. So that must be managed accordingly. Another item would be a lack of effective change management can lead the organization to fail. All right. So what I've mentioned earlier, ultimately, that can lead to something even more disastrous. So, like for example, with the plans or say the rollout plan of new policies not being successful, if the staff is discontent, and especially if they have a union, they can easily go on strike. And we all know that those strikes, they can extend to a long period of time, and ultimately that will impact the company, right? You won't have anything in production, you won't have any products on your sales force, so nothing to sell, no income. That will be bound for failure ultimately. All right. So it really is very important to have a proper org change management in place when you are going through organizational changes. All right. Please let me know if I'm going too fast, right? And if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'll try my best to answer. All right. So, with that said, and I hope we have now a better grasp of what organizational change is about and how important org change management is, I would like to share with you the types of org changes that we have so that at least for each type of org change, there should be an identified strategy on how you should approach it. All right. All right. So there are different types of org changes, and as mentioned, that would require different strategies. So everything from implementation to communication must be tailored to the type of change that you are to be making, right? So here are the six most common types of organizational change, along with change management examples for your consumption. All right. So the first one that I have here, hold on, let me just move my screen here. All right. So the first one that I have here is strategic change. All right. So what are the strategic changes? These are the organizations changes to their business to achieve goals, boost competitive advantage in the market, or respond to market opportunities or threats. All right. Some of you may already be very familiar with some of these, but let's go through with it. Some examples that we have would be change in business policies, structure, and processes. All right. Let's dig deep in some of the examples that we have. So, all right. So, updating mission vision, for example, right? So, for example, a company that first launched, they would have, of course, have identified the initial focus that they have, for example, on a specific client group that they're targeting for that product, let's say. Once the company has established that customer base, the focus could shift to upselling. So if they were able to already penetrate the market and introduce the product that they have, of course, on the business side of things, you would like to grow your business bigger and wider, and of course, increase your income. So with that said, you will have to also, if not yet already incorporated in your original mission vision, you will need to revise or update your mission vision um, as your company evolves. All right. Another strategic change that is always happening, I'm sure each and every one of us have taken part on this, is the innovation. All right. Strategic changes through digital innovation refers to using skills and resources to develop new ideas or improve existing offerings in order to meet customers' new and changing demands. All right. With the customers' new and changing demands, this is not just external customers, right? So it's not just like, for example, if you're selling a product and you have, it's not just that customer, but also those internal customers like you are an internal customer of your company. So for example, in order to improve your productivity, there will be certain innovations that your company will be introducing. So for example, new technologies on, let's say, application that you can use. So the most recent one that I can think of will be, for example, the use of 360, right? Oh, so that you can use it, especially since we are all in work from home. Last week, no, sorry, not last week, but last year when we started the work from home setup, right? Our companies would have to think of more innovative ways on how we can communicate with our clients, with our direct managers, etc. So a platform that they may introduce to you would be the 360, or if you don't have Zoom yet, or it be what other tools of work that you would need to make yourself be more productive and visible to the client, right? Another strategic change that we have is restructuring. So restructuring leads organizations to reorganizing aspects of their company to survive a massive blow or to maximize their already profitable business. Restructuring can result in downsizing or upsizing the workforce depending on the current status of that company. So these are just some of the examples that we have on a type of strategic change, one of the types of org changes that we can go through. All right. All right. Now, the second type of org change is people-centric change. All right, so this is the fun part. So while all changes affect people, people-centric types of org changes include instituting new, like for example, paternity leaves, maternity leaves, right? As for example, if the government has updated the number of leaves for those new parents, of course, for that company, they would also have to update their policies as well. A people centric change requires transparency, communication, effective leadership, and an empathic approach. All right. So, with this, there's a lot of emotions involved when you are going through some people centric org changes. And one of the change management models that is recommended to approach this type of org change would be the Kubler-Ross change curve or the Satir change model. These change management model focus specifically on managing emotional reactions to change. I think some of you may be familiar to this. This was actually in the mainstream a couple of months ago, especially during the elections time. So let me share that with you. So this is the Kubler-Ross change curve, right? So I'm sure some of you are now saying, ito pala yun. All right. So this is the change curve or Kubler-Ross change curve model that was created by the Swiss American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969. So it depicts the 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. All right, sounds familiar? So, um, with this, so the stages that is mentioned here, um, Change practitioners usually implement this model to identify any barriers to change projects early on and strategize accordingly. So the first item that you have here, the first item you see is the shock and denial, right? This is the first stage. Normally, an individual puts forward their defense mechanism to deflect the actual occurrence of the change, right? So I'm sure some of you are saying, I think this is more on, like, for example, when you use it in grief, right? This is what you um, would normally read through if if you encounter those self-help, but this is also very much applicable. This change management model is also very much applicable when you are rolling out people-centric org changes, right? Because again, people-centric is very much close to hearts of the people. So that's why the approach that you need to follow through or use would also be something that is more empathic. And this is the Kubler-Ross change curve, right? So the denial. So with this one, they have so as I mentioned, they have the denial and shock. So they, in terms of their defense mechanism, they need to deflect and really, at all costs, they don't want to acknowledge that it has occurred, the change. So what do you do if you are the employer? So you basically just let them be, right? Putting the people first, let them go through the changes, let them feel, go through the waves of their emotions, right? So that's after they go through the shock and denial, likely the next step would be anger, right? And I know that some of you in the chat box mentioned that yes, this is very familiar, and I'm sure each of you, actually, I myself have gone through this with all the changes that I've gone through. I'm sure you at some point would also may also relate in this kind of change curve that we have, right? So the next after the shock and denial would be the anger. This is when reality starts to sink in, right? When reality sinks in, when your prior emotion was more on shock and denial, um, your next emotion would actually manifest in the form of fear or anger. And this is that. Any change initiative has the potential to spiral out of control in this stage, resulting in significant change failures. So if you or the change proponent, make sure that you just basically avoid any trigger of anything, any action that might actually make things worse at this point. All right. So you have to have a close ear on the ground to sense, have that kind of temp check with the change recipients if they are going through anger. Let them process it out, right? For example, um, there's say let's say a marketing software company focused on aggressive business growth. Its profitability leaders went astray from a company values, causing employees burnout and attrition. Instead of investing in the existing strategy and framework, the company hired aggressively, spent more on advertising, and consumed its current profits. So of course, what do you think will be the impact to this to the recipients of that kind of strategy? There'll be, yes, Melbert is right. There will be a strong resistance to change, right? They'll go through the shock and denial, and of course, they'll go through anger. But after the anger, the next emotion, there's no stipulated time or duration as to when they will process that. But when they do come around, the next emotion that they will feel is bargaining. Once an individual crosses the anger stage of the change curve, they attempt to salvage the situation by exploring the path of least objection. All right. They may try to negotiate and find a compromise. So, this would be a good step to actually start the negotiation, um, revive your communication on the change to further state and let them know what is the importance of the change, why is it beneficial to them, how could it be beneficial to them. The next stage after the bargaining would be depression. In the depression stage, a person loses hope entirely. There are signs of extreme sadness, regret, and demotivation. So, what can you do as a change enabler or proponent for this? Of course, you can boost their morale. Perhaps at this point, you can further reinforce to them what would be the benefit of this change to you, right? If they are already depressed, you can boost their morale by telling them something that would be a good key takeaway for them. What would be the positive impact of this change to you, right? Make them realize that this change is not at all that bad. It's not bad at all. It's actually has these benefits for you. All right. And then, of course, after that, would be acceptance. WUSA. In the final stage of this change curve, individuals come to terms with the change, right? Their inhibitions are lowered, they accept the change and start to explore new favorable opportunities that are a result of the change, right? Once employees accept the change, you must cement the change into your org change culture to avoid reverting to old habits. Okay. All right. So this one, just like in any project, you always have to follow through and make sure that what you have promised to them, make sure that you deliver. All right. So they've gone through that roller coaster ride of emotions. They've gone through shock and denial, anger, bargaining, depression. So now that they have accepted the change, you have to make sure that you deliver as the change enabler, right? So that is the Kubler-Ross change curve that is advisable to be used when driving people-centric changes in your organization. Are we all clear? All right. All right. So I would like to share with you some examples on people-centric changes. This would be um, the new hire onboarding. All right. Bringing on new team members would require effective onboarding and training, of course, right? We all know that you have to make it right the first time, as in anything. So when you have new resources onboarding in your team, the best way to make sure that you basically make their learning curve not as steep is to ensure that you have a good onboarding program where you lay down what is it that they need to know. You also have the proper training program and training plan for them to ensure that they are well informed and acquainted with all the processes that they will need to perform once they are fully on board. All right. You need to start with communicating the reason for hiring new people to the team as well. For the existing resources that you have on the ground, make sure also that you, similar to when you're having a new baby, for example, this is your second baby, you also have to acclimatize the new your firstborn, and let them know that okay, the new baby is incoming, but you have a role as a big brother, etc. So similarly, that is something that you also need to apply when you are onboarding new resources. You make sure that you don't deprioritize or disregard your existing resource. Make sure that they feel as important and they actually have a bigger role that they have to support now the new hire of your team, right? Another example of people-centric changes in an organization is changes to roles and responsibilities, right? um, with the changes in the roles and responsibilities, of course, you have to make sure that you have the proper training or upskilling plan if need be. All right. You might be adding new task or scope to your resource. Make sure that they do have the skill set to meet that new task. If not, then you have to ensure that you have the right training plan identified to ensure that they transition smoothly or absorb the new tasks accordingly. Unfortunately, the last example that I have here is layoff, right? So this is something that is also very quite common now. If your company undergoes mass hiring or layoffs, forcing you to change your internal operations and processes, the situation has to be dealt with by keeping in mind its impact on both the laid off and the remaining employees' morale. All right. For the laid off, some companies they would offer like a gardening leave, right? Or so that they can organize their new job later on. They may identify new roles for them as they are offboarded in one role. That's one option. If ever they are really going to be fully offboarded from that role, some companies would actually offer a like a what do you call that? Like a financial support, like a 2 months worth pay, etc. Some companies would do that. But at the same time, also you also have to think of the resources that are left behind, right? With my experience, I was part of the ones left behind, and let me tell you that the experience was not something that I would wish upon anybody else, right? You have to ensure that communication with the ones who were left behind after the layoff are also handled accordingly, right? Some of them, they have to talk to an HR personnel so that they can process what they are feeling. Imagine like myself, I've seen my colleagues who were part of the company for X, some 10 years, some 20 years, who were laid off because the company could not support them. That was back in the early 2000 when the market collapsed. So there were really a lot of people who were retrenched. So, but I was very thankful with my company then because they really have a good change management plan to handle that event. They had one-on-one discussions with the resources, both those who were leaving the company and those who were leaving behind. That kind of action plan. All right. So these are just some examples that we have for people-centric changes in an organization. Are we all good? Questions so far? Okay. All right. Everybody's quiet. I hope everything's okay. All right. The next item that I have here is now on structural change. All right. Structural changes are the ones that where the org structure uh are changed and may be led by internal or external factors, right? And typically they would affect how the company is run. All right. So some of the structural changes may include changes in the management hierarchy, team organization, chain of command, job structure, admin procedures. So those are just some examples of structural changes. All right. All right. So on a more specific view of what structural changes is about, one of the most common example that we have would be mergers and acquisitions. All right. Can anyone share with me what is a merger? Anyone? What are your thoughts on a merger and acquisition? Has anyone ever experienced in being in a company where it was merged and acquired by another company? All right.
I'm in a company that was merged and acquired by another company, and then that company was merged and acquired by another company.
Wow. Okay. And how is
So,
how is that for you guys as the recipients of the change? How did you go through having a new boss around, right, etc.? How was it for you, Manu?
I just joined the company, so I didn't go through that. But
Mm-hmm.
um, from the way I see it, there's lots of email addresses that you have to maintain.
Oh, I think I'm quite familiar with that company. Yes, okay. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Um, certain inconveniences, definitely, right? As you acclimatize or adhere to the new policy of the new company or parent company, right? So, have you completed with your transition already, or are you still in the process of, transitioning?
Still in the process of transitioning, but
Mm-hmm.
almost there, almost there.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that before. Almost there sometimes could take 6 months to a year. So hopefully though, the change management plan that they have is well laid out for you to minimize any inconvenience and or stress to you guys. All right. All right. Thanks, Manu, for sharing that. I also note that Grace mentioned here that I think I experienced most of these changes. All right. Grace, would you like to share any experiences that you may have specifically on structural changes?
I think the change that I experienced, you mentioned about the company closing down, so I experienced
Mm,
that.
okay.
So actually, several times within that company. So one of the was sold out to a new company. So I moved to their product. So
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, then the company totally closed down. The branch in the Philippines closed down. So we don't have any
Oh,
transfer. So but I'm thankful for the company because we did receive a very good compensation. And then it was actually after it was announced, I I parted with the company after a year. So the transition was kind of uh, it's kind of not I couldn't explain it
havoc.
because yeah because I was from the team. I was the last. So
Okay.
I see them one by one leaving by the last
Uh-huh.
end of day. So
All right.
I was told to close the door when I leave.
Oh
So
my. All
it's
right.
kind of
Closing time
heartbreaking
and
as
you were
well.
there
Yeah.
to handle. Yes, yes. It's
And
also
then
very emotional, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's one. And then recently our company was acquired by another company. So
Mhm.
that's another change. So I think
Okay.
with a lot of changes, I think I'm not that shocked anymore.
You have become resilient, as they say. So that's good. All right. Thank you for sharing, Grace. Thank you for sharing. All right. So definitely thank you guys for sharing that experience. And you see, this is something that is very close to heart, I think, for each and every one of us. At some point in our lives, we have gone through such organizational changes. It's such a mouthful, org changes in our lives, right? So with this three, mergers and acquisitions are the most common cause of structural change, right? Likely what would be the impact or results of this, we might have to as two companies or even three companies merge, they would have to eliminate role redundancies, right? They might have to also redefine their goals. um, they would need to clearly define new roles and responsibilities, and also training on technology are all important parts of managing change during mergers and acquisitions, right? How do they transition to what, right? First of all, they have to identify, for example, um, company A would have technology A, and then company B would have technology B. Which technology should be adopted, right? And once they have identified that, how do you transition? Let's say if they have decided that they will adopt technology B, how do you transition, migrate technology user A to technology B, right? So it's quite a nightmare if you don't really plan accordingly, right? So that is a structural change. It will result to like a portfolio of change management plans that you have to implement to ensure that that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. All right. Creation of new teams. So for this one, this can happen, like for example, the one that I mentioned here is, for example, data analytics, right? You might decide to create a separate team to dedicate to reporting, or, for example, you identified a new group of people who are actually good at doing analytics. So you will have to create a new team. And with that, of course, you have to write down the policies, what is it should be their BAUs, etc. Right? Changes to companies' org charts, for example, promotions of new roles. So if it's a new box, that has to be incorporated also with your current org chart, etc. All right. If I may go back with the mergers and acquisitions, specifically with this kind of structural change, there is one change management model that is actually quite recommended based on some literatures that I have read, and this is the Lewin's change management model. This works well for this kind of structural change, and this is what is it about. So basically, the Lewin's change model has three stages. All right. Some of you may already be very familiar with this. Um, So for this one, it has 3 steps. It's quite easy, as you would see. It's basically just to unfreeze and then change and refreeze. All right. For the first one, for the unfreeze, you prepare for the desired change. All right. So the first stage will deal with perception management, aims to prepare the affected stakeholders for the upcoming org changes. All right. So with the unfreeze, change leaders must look at ways to improve the company's preparedness for change and create a sense of urgency. All right. During this stage, effective change communication plays a vital role in getting the desired team member buy in and support of the people in the change management. All right. All right. So the following activities. So for those, as mentioned, those are under the unfreeze stage. All right. After the unfreeze stage, um, would be the change phase, or this is when we implement the desired change. All right. So after you have prepared them, after you have sought and secured the buy-in, um, you now move on to the next stage, which deals with the implementation of the change. All right. In this stage, you must consider perhaps an agile and iterative approach that incorporates employee feedback to smoothen the transition. All right. You can't just be uh, you also at all times you always have to have a close ear on the ground, as I would say, right? You can't just implement the change without hearing what would be the feedback of the recipients of the change. All right. Because basically if you do that, you'll be just forcing them to the change, and more often than not that would lead to a very unsuccessful change to the team, to the organization. You can further look at I guess more on a continuous flow on information to obtain the support of your members. Organize perhaps change management workshops and sessions for change management exercises, right? Another way would be empower employees to deal with the change proactively. All right. Generate easy wins as visible results will motivate your team. All right. And then the third step would be the refreeze, or as they say, refreeze is solidifying the desired change. So after you have gone through the three steps, first is to unfreeze, preparing for the desired change, and then second is to change, implement the desired change. Now you have to refreeze. You need to ensure that employees move away from the transition phase towards stabilization or acceptance in the final refreezing stage. No turning back. All right. So basically, here it's really more on reinforcement to ensure that they continue to adopt the new changes that you have implemented. All right. So that would be the Lewin's change model theory. All right. All right. So there. Again, the Lewis this one, the Lewin's change model theory is the recommended model for those undergoing mergers and acquisitions. Okay. All right. And then the fourth type of organizational change would be the technological change. So this is something that I'm sure most of you are already going through, or likely even be part of a project that is promoting the changes, the technological changes in your company. So this is where as one company evolves, technology lead to technological change within organizations. So technology change often involves introducing new software or system to improve business processes. All right. So it's all about identifying new technologies, new methods, implementing a digital strategy for improved productivity and profitability. All right. However, technology project goals are often improperly defined and poorly communicated. That's actually one of the reasons why um, me personally, as a consultant, we have a job, because most companies are facing that kind of problem, right? Wherein the changes or the project goals are improperly defined and poorly communicated. So, which scares and frustrates your employees and ultimately leads to resistance. All right. So, some examples just to share with you of technological changes would be like, for example, digital transformation. This is a very common terminology that each of you have already encountered at one point of your life. Digital transformation would be transitioning into a remote first workspace, right? I believe most of us experienced this during the start of the pandemic. Everyone had to rethink their current policies, and to avoid the current risks of the virus, you will really have to go and move and change how you perceive to the normal way of working is to be, and move to a remote work setup, right? You can also use design thinking to analyze and optimize the customer journey. All right, so this is very much prevalent. Especially another example would be when we went into in the thick of things of the pandemic. Everyone was restricted to stay at home. So everyone, if not yet using the mobile banking, was actually forced to use the mobile banking. So with that, certain companies, they were not ready in the influx of customers using their application. So they had to fast track, let's say, beefing up their servers to make sure that they can support the number of users using their application. That was one impact of that. Another digital transformation example would be implementing automated customer service, right? Using AI driven insights to improve sales efficiency, automating employee performance management. All right. So these are just some examples of the digital transformation. Another example of tech changes would be introduction of new technology. Here, I've actually I did a little bit of research, and these, if you notice here, are some of the new technology trends that are up and coming this 2023. These are up and coming, but likely to some of you guys who are involved in tech projects, you may already be working on, you know, a similar project include involving this kind of technology, so that by next year they will be in place with the company that you are working with, right? Some examples that we have here would be on the AI, artificial intelligence, right? Robotics process automation, or RPA, blockchain, right? 5G, although 5G is already in place for some, but not yet in all areas. And of course, always improving and strengthening one's cybersecurity. So that's one of the technologies that is continuously evolving as we speak. All right. Yes, so Manu already has some topics to discuss in the next session. Yes, I'll share this with you later on. So these are just some of the tech changes that you will likely, if not yet, will be part of. All right. All right. Questions so far? Everybody good? All right. And then the second to the last type of org changes, of course, there would be unplanned changes. Similar to risks, there are some risks that are unknown. With the changes, with the org changes, the same can be said as well. There are unplanned changes that will likely happen during the course of your journey in that organization. These are unexpected events. Unplanned change cannot be predicted, but can be dealt with by effective change management. Or if you have a very good risk manager, that may likely be already in your risk planning, right? And so that you have already a contingency plan or a mitigating plan to address that. Some examples of unplanned changes would be, again, going back to the start of the pandemic, nobody really saw the pandemic happening, right? That was the unknown risk. That was the black swan event. And because of that, some really had to think through their processes. What would be the best way to live with it, to attack it, right? And that would be to shift to remote work. Most companies adopted that right away. But of course, some companies were not able to readily adopt that because their infrastructure was not prepared for it. So that was a bit of a hiccup, and most companies had to really fast track and beef up their infrastructure in order to support that kind of new setup. Another item would be the loss of critical personnel. All right. Especially again with the pandemic, this risk became even higher, right? The probability of it happening rose because of the pandemic. Everyone was really vulnerable to it, right? And during the start of the pandemic, the vaccine for the virus was not yet fully rolled out to our country. So a lot of us were very much vulnerable and susceptible to get that virus. So the probability of losing your critical personnel was quite high. But you can identify mitigating control points to actually address that, right? For that specific scenario, you can, for example, of course, if you have a good succession plan, that should be able to address the loss of the critical personnel, right? In the event of employee turnover in critical roles, succession planning is the most effective way to minimize the effect of such change, right? So what is the succession plan? That would be to identify the critical position, future staffing needs, documenting and transferring key knowledge, right? So that would be where your um, knowledge transfer documentation, knowledge transfer session should take place. People that could fill these future roles within an organization would already be earmarked, right? To help replace that critical role that has been vacated in the event that it does happen. All right. And the sixth and last type of organizational change that I will be discussing today is on the remedial change. Sadly, this is something that a lot of companies are adopting. Remedial change are reactionary, right? These are not proactive, and more often than not, remedial changes begin with an issue and end with a solution. This is something that could work, right? But this is more on addressing an immediate need, but it may not be sustainable. It's good to address issues that are happening right now, but if the issue continues to happen, it would be more sustainable for your company to really have a look and have a revisit if the process is still valid, or if a long-term change needs to be put into effect given that the issue is recurring. All right. So as these changes are designed to address an issue, they call for immediate action. All right. So these are the remedial changes. Questions so far? Everyone good? All right. All right. So some examples of remedial changes. Example would be addressing customer communication issues. So for example, one example that I cite out here is, for example, a gaming company realized that each time they release a new game, customers had a lot of questions and feedback. Right. So what they did, as they are anticipating these kind of influx of questions, they made sure that their call center was well capacitized, right? Let's say they put in, normally if they have 10 seats, they beefed it up and they doubled the capacity because they are anticipating an influx of calls. But they later realized that nobody was really calling, and most of their customers were really they prefer to go straight to the social media and or go to like chatbots or what have you in Facebook or Instagram and raise their questions through there rather than calling up a hotline number. They would raise their comments to that. So of course, if you were that company, you will have to revise your process. And instead of putting more people in the contact center, perhaps you can beef up your resources who are focused on your social media accounts, right? Given the response that you have received, all right? So you have to ensure that you have that kind of the you have to be dynamic enough to adopt but no to you have to be dynamic enough to be able to respond to the issue at hand. All right. Another example would be providing more training for new hires. All right. You might notice that new employees are struggling to learn internal tools and software. So as a result, they are running to established employees with questions. So as a result, as they are, like for example, tapping tenured resource A, the productivity of tenured resource A actually drops because he is focusing more time to teach that resource. So ultimately, that would mean that your current training is really not that quite effective. All right. So in this case, the remedial change could include a combination of a user onboarding program, all right, to beef up the training module, for example, or perhaps you can have this in a readily accessible FAQ page, right? So that the newly onboarded resources can easily just refer to them rather than disturbing those resources who are quite busy in the current volume of items that they are processing for that day. That's just one scenario. All right. So again, so just to recap, these are the 6 types of org changes that we have discussed. The first is the strategic, all right? So this would include the change in business policies, structure, or processes. The second type of org change is on the people-centric change. So this is more on changes that will really be impacting the people, the resources, the customers. So includes instituting new parental leave policies or bringing in new hires. Structural change, the third type of org change, this would include changes in the management hierarchy, teams, the responsibility of the team, the department, chain of command, job structure. The fourth one is on the technological change. So this is to introduce new software or system to improve business processes. All right. The fifth one is the unplanned change. Or some of you may call it also the black swan, as we are all, most of you here from the 7-7 are just recently finished the risk management and also the fundamentals of BA. You're familiar with this. These are the unknown unknowns. So necessary action following unexpected events, right? And last but not the least is the remedial change. These occurs when a problem is identified and a solution needs to be implemented. All right. So these are just the 6 type of changes that we have. All right. Questions so far? Are we good? All right. All right.
Mary,
Yes.
Alvin here.
Hi, Alvin.
Hi. The remedial change, is that similar to just like a band-aid solution?
Yes, actually, yeah. So it's not sustainable, but
Mhm.
action is required because the issue is already at hand, right? So this will likely be this can occur if, for example, you have not identified, let's say during your risk, when you were identifying the risk for the company, maybe this was not part of the risks that you have identified. So therefore, you don't have any contingency or mitigating action plan to address it. So, unfortunately, though, um, that does not diminish the fact that the company would need to address it given that the issue has already materialized and it's right there already happening. So, with that said, you really have to now identify
Mhm.
what would be your change management plan for it. Yeah. All right. So if we go back to the example, like for example, this one, um, all right. So for example, for the providing of more training for new hires, um, it may be that your training module is actually quite comprehensive, right? But it just so happens that you have that one or two resource that is just not digesting or consuming that training material quite if quite as how should you say it, quite as well as the others. So with that, rather than they continuously disrupt your operational resources on the ground, you can also already think of a way to actually have a means of addressing that. So it could be either a make a Canva like this, a Canva presentation or a PDF format, so that that is something, or maybe a cheat sheet of sort, right? If it's something
Mhm.
that they can refer to rather than disturbing the resource, etc. So it's more also about you have to be very dynamic as well on how
Mhm.
you should respond to these type of unforeseen changes. perhaps.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alvin. All
Uh,
right.
I have one more. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Go ahead.
Um, for these changes in the organization, who is responsible for the introduction or the announcement of change to the employees? Will it be the BA, the PM, the supervisor, or the operations manager, or somebody
Mm.
else?
All right. Okay. All right. So we have to shift our mindset here because with these changes, we are talking about organizational changes, right? So it's not just a project change of sort. So it's more enterprise wide. So with these changes, this will require a more more often than not, this would be the senior management team leading such changes, given that, as mentioned, organizational changes are very material changes to one's company, right? As mentioned earlier. So with this, the change management strategy will likely be led by your change leaders, and more often than not, the change leaders in one's organization would comprise of the senior management, the president, the C levels, right? So yeah. So for this one, if your question is who is to initiate that, again, it will be depending on the type of the organizational change that will be carried forward. So if, for example, it is a strategic change, meaning it is a change in the business policies, a change in the structure, a change in the process. All right, let's identify one item. For example, there will be a new HR policy that will be rolled out. Now, who do you think should lead the change for that if it's an HR policy change?
The HR manager.
Yes, it should be the HR manager. It should be the HR head, ideally, right? Because that is something that is under his or her shop. So that should be led by the HR head with full support, of course, by the president and all the other senior management team, given that the change is very strategic. All right. So there. So you will really have to um evaluate what kind of organizational change is being carried forward, right? And then from there, you will be identify who should be the change leader to that. All right. It could be just a process change. So if it's if it's a process change, then the operational head or lead should be the front liner to that kind of change initiative. All right. I hope
Okay.
I was able to answer your question.
Oh, yes, you
Yeah.
did. I was just trying to relate the situation, this concept to the current situation that we had. We're in, we have to say goodbye to a project, and the people in that project will have to be, distributed among other functions, and some of us will have to stay, and some of us will have to say goodbye. And how the comp plan went
Mm-hmm.
in announcing the change to the people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Alvin, for that question. All right. So,
Thank you.
if no other questions on this, I'll move on to my last topic. So, the last topic that I have now is ways to ensure successful org changes are for carried forward. All right. So, with this, hold on a second. Minor. Okay. All right. So I'll try to make this short. Let's see, it's almost 9 o'clock. Sorry about that. So um with certain ways to ensure successful organizational change, that's another mouthful that I have. I'll try to limit it to five, right? So first and foremost, we should have a clear vision and goal. All right. So it's essential to understand the reason for the change, how it will impact the business outcomes, and when it will be considered successful. Putting together and sharing comprehensible purpose, vision, and goal helps employees and leaders understand the why of the change, and it is critical for the overall success of a change implementation. Like putting this in a personal level, right? If you're going to have a change put forward to you, of course, you will be more open to accept the change if you're able to understand why the change is happening. What is it to me? What is the benefit to me, right? So if you are able to understand why that change is happening, you'll be more open to accept the change. So it's critical. Similarly, in org changes, one must have a clear vision and goal. All right. The second strat or technique, or at least items that should be up there, ways to ensure successful org change, is of course prioritization. It's impossible to change everything at once, so it is critical to prioritize the matters you want to tackle first. So, for example, implementing 3 new enterprise application one after another. All right. Do you think it will be successful if you implement all the changes all at the same time? Definitely not, right? You should be able to assess, evaluate which of the 3 applications should you prioritize, should you do first, all right? Which one would have the biggest impact? You can start with the biggest ticket, or you could actually start off with the smallest ticket for the minimal change, depending on your strategy, overall strategy with your company. But ultimately, you really have to prioritize which one you should proceed first in order to proceed with the full changes, because definitely your wrong move in your prioritization will impact and you know impact the results of your implementation or the change that you have. The third item is to secure buy-in from your organization. All right. And I think this has been reiterated in the previous examples that I had, and also in the change management models that we have discussed previously. It is essential to include all key stakeholders, from the leadership and management to executives, to minimize an organization's resistance to change. 'Di ba? And I think you might have heard of this already, that once you have the backup of the top down, you once you have the endorsement or the full support of the management team, it's much easier to implement these changes. At least you're sure that you have the full support of the top management team, so you have them at your back to fully guide you and support you throughout. All right. This would actually help you also help employees feel heard, included, and valued, allowing for any conflict to be aired early in an implementation project and quickly be resolved. All right. Ultimately, for this as well, in order for you to secure buy-in from your organization, there should be a good communication plan as well to inform all stakeholders about the change. All right, communication really is key, as always in anything. All right, any question, violent reaction? We're good. All right, fourth item. Sorry.
Mary, normally, who do you inform first in the comp plan?
I'm sorry for that.
In your comp plan, normally, who do you inform first? The top manager?
All right. Again, this will be dependent as well on the type of change. So, for example, if it is going to be a structural change, right, then definitely I would need the top support of the team, and even likely before I can initiate the change, if it's going to be an org change, more often than not, I would have been tapped already by the senior management, by the president. It will normally be led by the president, and that kind of committee, or the change committee, would have been triggered already to support the change. So with that, um, if you're asking who should we be first informing, is that the question, ba?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
All right.
Because there might be instances in which you did not inform the top manager first, and then you informed the other stakeholders, but then in the end, the top manager said no to the proposal. Have you ever
Mm,
experienced something like that before?
um I honestly cannot I honestly have not had that kind of experience because with the organizational changes that are to be forwarded or to be recommended, right? Normally before it even reaches the resources outside of the, say, the senior management group, much thought and discussion have
Mhm.
been put forward already, right? So once there is already a communication plan that would already be involving the recipients of the change. So prior to the communication being rolled out, there should have been much discussion, much debate, right? And airing out of pros and cons to that change before it can become effective. All right. So for this step that I am mentioning here, I guess there would be specifically on the communication that would be on the rollout already of the change. So with the rollout of the change, that should have been already properly be approved by your top team, essentially, should be, right? Because for the effective change leadership, you should be able to communicate, collaborate, and commit. So yeah, so sorry, parang nawala ako. Was that was I able to answer that
Yes,
question?
yes. Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, going back to this, let's go back to this. You just need to make sure that you have the buy-in from your organization. Of course, you won't be rolling out any organizational change, anything that major, without properly consulting your top management team, right? I think that's a given. So once you were able to secure the buy-in from your top team, then you can proceed with the rollout and the communication plan, right? So the fourth item here is the build a change implementation plan. All right. The change implementation plan, this will be driven by the change management model that you will be implementing. I've only mentioned a few, specifically three items, right? And you'll notice that the change management plan or strategy that you will adopt will largely be identified depending on the org change that you will be proceeding with, right? What we have discussed previously is like, for example, for the people centric org changes, the recommended change management model approach would be the Kubler-Ross, right? With the 5 stages of um, change, 5 stages of emotions that you go through as you undergo changes, because it's more emotional in nature, right? So you need to be more empathic when dealing with people centric kind of org changes. So make sure that you go back, you look back and see what type of organizational change are you trying to put forward, after which identify what kind of change management plan you can adopt for it. And then from there, you will be identifying how you will roll it out, right? So a successful change implementation requires a detailed plan to highlight critical milestones systematically. All right. This is not normally for org changes. The change implementation plan is not handled by one person alone. More often than not, it is a collaboration from all the impacted stakeholders team. All right. A practical implementation plan accelerates the pace of change implementation by anticipating and overcoming barriers and resistance to change. Again, I cannot stress the importance of keeping keeping your ear on the ground. All right. There will likely be resistance to your changes, and you have to be prepared on how you should respond to that. All right. And then the fifth one is the focus on training and support. On demand training and support are vital for reinforcing change. You can implement different change management tools that provide training, create knowledge bases, track progress, etc. Um, remember when we discussed the Kubler-Ross change curve, the last stage there is on the acceptance, right? So in the acceptance stage, you really have to reinforce the change to the recipients of the change. And how you can reinforce this is on training and support. All right. So you can have a ready hotline number. Some organizations, they do that. They have a hotline number duly dedicated to address or anticipate any concerns coming from the customers, or be it the external or internal customers, so they can prepare for it. So there. All right. All right.
Mhm.
So these are the 5 ways that you can ensure that you have a successful organizational changes. All right. So I hope I was able to share something very interesting with you guys. That actually concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, feel free to share, to raise them now, and I'll try my best to answer. Questions?
Wala na.
So quiet.
Ako, ako na lang uli.
All right. All right. Alvin, is it okay? I note that Joy Tropani has raised her hand.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Joy, do you have a question? I think Joy got shy.
Mhm.
All right. Alvin, yes, do you have a question?
Nahiya na rin ako, hindi lang.
Go ahead.
The acceptance part on the Kubler-Ross change, is it acceptance in general, or is it the kind of acceptance wherein you are contented with whatever was offered to you, or the kind of acceptance because you're left with no option, so tanggapin mo na lang, parang ganun, or
Mm, hold on. Let me go back to that slide. Sorry, Joy, we cannot hear you actually. Hold on a second. All right. So let's go through. Oh, sorry. All right. So this is the Kubler-Ross change curve. All right. So the last stage there is the acceptance. Sorry, let me look at the chat. Hi, Joy. Sorry, we cannot hear you. All right. But if you can type in your question, perhaps you can do so, and I'll try my best to answer to that. All right. Hold on a second. All right. Okay. So Alvin, can you repeat your question again on the acceptance? Hello? Alvin, you might be
I'm
on mute.
talking on mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. All
Ang
right.
haba na ng sinabi ko. In the
Sorry.
acceptance part of the curve, is that the
Mm,
kind of acceptance that is in general, or the kind in which you are already contented with what was offered to you or discussed with you, or the kind of acceptance in which you're left with no option but to just accept whatever was presented to you?
okay. All right. I'll try my best to answer that, right? But basically for the Kubler-Ross, what I understand is the acceptance is the final stage, right? Where the individual has come to terms with the change. Now, in my perspective as a change enabler, right? Once you have provided um once you have provided or you once I have already indication from you or confirmation from you that you have accepted the change, meaning you have lowered your inhibitions, you have accepted the change, and you are looking at how to move forward with it, then that's my go signal to proceed to reinforce the change with you. However, you're right, because of as the recipient of the change, it might be that you are accepting it because you are left with no choice, or you are accepting it gladly. You know what I mean? I do recognize that
Yes,
you will
yes.
have that two spectrum, but as the change enabler, basically, once you have granted the acceptance to us, that is the exit criteria that you have accepted. I mean, am I making sense?
Right,
That
right.
that spectrum wherein whether it be a positive acceptance or a negative acceptance from your end, that is a personal emotion that you are, that's your, it's owned by the recipient of the change, right? um I'm not sure. Perhaps that's an outside already on how you can process it.
Mhm,
Because each person will have its own way of processing changes. I am cognizant of that, and
mhm,
one cannot really fast track one and expect the same momentum with another. Right? Ito nga yung sabi nila kanya-kanya. To each his
mhm,
own.
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
So there. So I think I will respond to your question as that each will have its own way of accepting the change. But in
mhm,
the Kubler-Ross, that form indication of acceptance will already be the milestone or the trigger to actually reinforce as part of the change management plan. For us change enablers, that will be the go signal to reinforce the change with you, because you have already stated that you have accepted it. Yeah.
mhm. Right. So
Uh,
whatever kind of acceptance that is, anyway, in your last slide naman, address siya in number 5 on the
mm,
focus on training and support. So whatever that is,
yes.
you are going to provide training, create knowledge base, and track progress. So you are actually in progress together with the employee. So you track
Mm-hmm.
their progress, whatever level of acceptance they had in the last part of
Mm.
the change curve. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alvin. Thank you. All right. Okay. Unfortunately, we can't hear Joy, but I know that she has raised a question in the chat. And let me read it. So she said, what if we already secured buy-in from the executives' directions to implement a transformational change to our team, but now seems we're stuck and blocked by the head of our department? He's not a supporter of the change. Any suggestions? Okay. All right. I'm not quite sure what is the details of the transformational change that you are referring to, but given that you have the full buy-in from your top executives following the chain of command, then your head of department is reporting to the executive team, right? So if you have proper documentation, to actually showcase the approval or endorsement of your top management team on the proposed changes that you wish to push forward, then you can present this to your head of department and let them know that this is already approved and should already be implemented, assuming that there is already an implementation plan on the way. And if ever, I would suggest that you can loop in your heads and notify them that there is that kind of resistance so that the change governance body can properly address it. I hope I was able to answer your question. All right. Don't quote me though. So, all right. All right. Okay. All right. Any other questions from the team? Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, then thank you very much. You guys are very good audience, and thank you for the questions raised, Alvin. I appreciate it, and Joy, and to the rest of the team. Back to you, Manu. Thank you. Oh, sorry. There's one more. Pahabol. Ace, do you want to speak up? Okay, no audio. Cost question. How do you consider that the technological change you facilitated is successful? All right. Um, for any technological change in any project, there will be like an exit criteria. The successful criteria will be set at the very onset. All right. So, for example, if the technological change is to implement the latest let's say latest Zoom application, right? Of course, the exit criteria there, or the success factor, is to get confirmation that everybody is able to use and utilize the new software. So that would be your success criteria. Essentially, those success criteria are identified and agreed with the users. Well, with the users, with all the change group, the change enablers, the change leaders, the recipients of the change. That should already be identified at the very onset, so that at least you'll know once you've ended it, if you were able to successfully meet the target change requirement. I hope I was able to answer your question. All right, great. All right. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much again. Melvin, thanks. So back to you, Manu. Thank you.
Hey, all right, that was amazing. Thank you so much for the great session. I won't keep you guys much longer. So I will just present real quick. Again, thank you so much. What a great topic, and so well prepared, and very engaging, and really cool slides. So we hope to hear more from you, and good luck to all your everything, all your endeavors and organization inside and out of it. Yeah.
You're most welcome. It was an
Okay.
honor to actually host this event. Thank you for considering me as one of your speakers. I would also like to, acknowledge all the participants here. Thank you for showing up today, especially to the group with 717. So thank you for joining, guys, and please expect a certificate of attendance, as mentioned by Manu earlier. And also, I would like to just promote that we are actively encouraging folks to be certified. So if ever you meet the eligibility criteria, feel free to contact me or Nino or Meg, right? So that we can review your profile and endorse you to the president, so that you can proceed with your certification, be CBAP, PMP, or CPMO. All right. All right. Thank you, Manu. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Thank you, Manu.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mary.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Manu.